Squashes and their relatives are one of my favourite kinds of plants, especially winter squash. For example, this one here is a gem squash. Now these are part of I grew up in South Africa. I lived in Cape Town for many years when I was younger. And this is one of the staple sort of foods down there, staple vegetables. Everybody loves gem squash. And I grew this successfully last year here. And this plant here is from Save Seed. Now saving seed from squashes, that's a flower there, but it's a deformed one. That's not going to come to anything. Saving seeds from squashes are a little bit more tricky than doing it with chilies. The isolation has to be completely stitched on. You have to be completely on top of it because they're very, very promiscuous. I mean, squashes are pollinated by insects, and insects are always all over them, as you can see. So they will cross with each other, always. I'm putting that to the test this year actually. I'm going to do a couple of crosses, but for the most part, these ones here will be saving seed from. So when we get a true flower, I don't see one cat, in fact there's a little bud coming down there. When we get a true flower on this, I will use the techniques that I've learned recently on seed saving for these. I have two gem squash plants. I have this one and I have another one which is planted in among some beans on the other side of the allotment, so I'll be sort of crossing between the two. The saved seed came from two different plants last year, so there should be differences in genetics between the two. Now, as we're in early summer, these have been here since mid-spring, so around about May the 15th these were planted in the ground. And they take a little while to get going. It takes them a little while to get their roots down, but once they do, they bush up a little bit in the middle, as you can see. All of them, they bush up a little bit, they save up a bit of energy, and then they start firing out what they call leader stems. So this is the leader stem. This is where the fruit's going to grow off. As you can see, it's going to keep growing, crawling along the ground. This one, in fact, has got two leader stems, which is nice. Normally, there's only one. For example, here, this is a Hubbard squash. It only has the one leader coming off. There will be side shoots, but they won't come to anything really. It's just that the main leader itself will forge its way along, and then it may spread out as it goes. But I'll take you through some of the ones, just talk you through some of the varieties we've got in the garden. So, apart from the gem squash and the Hubbard, which I've just shown you, we also have this variety here, which is Muscat de Provence. Now these seeds, even though they're available in the European market, I bought these from Rare Seeds in America, rareseeds.com, which is Baker Creek heirloom seeds. I've always got great seeds from them and always had really good plant quality from their seeds. So when I wanted to experiment with different kinds of squash this year, I went to their list. They've got a really comprehensive list, and also of chilies and sweet peppers. So you may want to have a look at that. Over here we've got another one. I think this didn't come from Baker Creek, I don't think. This came from possibly Real Seeds. I may correct that. But again, this one's got its little leader stem. Now all squash plants largely look the same. I mean, you can compare them to like cucumbers and summer squash like courgettes, and the leaves are roughly the same, but the plants grow slightly different. The leaves are slightly different shapes. That one there, the gem squash, is like a kind of maple leaf shape. These ones are more rounded. These ones here, again, moving back towards the more maple leaf shape. But they're all kind of similar. I mean, you can recognise it for being a squash, and the dead giveaway obviously is the leader. At the back there we've got a blue Hungarian, which is quite large. A bit of scale there. So that one's sort of growing really fast. This one's came on really well in the last few days. It was the same size as the gem a couple of days ago, so we're getting a lot of sun, a lot of rain. They like that. the butternut, which I showed you, well, maybe I didn't show you in a previous video, but here it is. This is the first time I've grown butternut squashes outdoors. I always tend to grow them in the greenhouse through a pot. And with varying degrees of success. I mean, they don't like their roots being restricted, squashes, so not a great idea all the time to grow them in a pot. But if you allow them to trail, it gives them the opportunity to not just grow their roots out and spread them, but also as they sort of spread across the beds, some of them put down more roots and anchor themselves into the soil, and that helps their growth and allows them to support more fruit as the season goes on. I would only expect maybe 2 or 3 butternut squashes off of one plant. However, there's differences in the sort of yield to them. So I think the general rule is that the larger the squash, the fewer fruits you'll get from them. For example, a gem squash, you probably get about 4 fruits per litre in this climate. Here we have a Marina di Chioggia, which is fantastic. I've grown this last year, and it's the same this year. It's grown very quickly, as you can see. Its leader's heading off in that direction, but it's the one that's the most prone to pests. Pests seem to like the taste of this one. So these are all, I think, flea beetles that have damaged this, and not to any great extent. I mean, once they get established, that's acceptable damage because they grow very fast, as you can see. I mean, by the time this leaf here reaches full height, full size, should I say, these ones here, this stem will have moved on another probably 1.5 feet. So that's growing very well as well. That's grown better than expected, actually. That's another blue banana there. Here we have a Muscat de Provence. This is another one, same as the one up there. They seem to have this sort of mouldy sort of thing going on, but I've always had this with certain varieties of squash, and it has never proved disastrous or provided any great difficulties in the past. So that's not really anything I would worry about. This one here, kind of the same. It's a little bit duller. This is a Maroc. This is one of 2 Maroc plants I have, or Muscat de Maroc, to give it its full title. These ones are similar to the Muscat de Provence, except they grow with kind of little nodules, so they look like very alien, monster-like, you could say. This blue banana here, I just zoom in on it a little bit. I think they've got a little fruit forming there, so that's nice. That's in addition to a fruit you saw at the beginning of the video, which is over here in this bed. Now I've got 4 of these beds. I've got 4 squash beds, each one with 5 in it, so they're roughly 1 metre apart, the roots, which is what we want. And in these sort of 4 beds, there's 5 in each, so there's 20 plants. I have another couple dotted around the allotment, including one growing amongst the beans, as I said already, one of the gems, which I'm hoping is going to climb up with the beans. So here we have, this one here is another Hubbard that I forgot to put a label in for, but that was a spare that I chucked in. So same as the one way up there, but this one seems to be growing better. I think the general rule here is that the ones that grow along this side, the sun is kind of blocked by this fence later on in the day, so they grow in a little bit of shadow, so that's why they're all a little bit smaller, and the ones at the back are being a little more, are getting a little more sunshine, so they're able to spread their leaves a little bit bigger and progress that a little bit faster. Now at the beginning of the video I showed you this. Now that part of the video was filmed yesterday when I first noticed, but this is a curry. This is the first curry squash. Now these stay yellow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, obviously, so that will expand to probably about the size of this leaf here, if you can see the contrast between the two. And when it gets to that size, it will start to turn orange, and then eventually it will ripen to red, and we will harvest all those in October, as we will do with all of the squashes, really. A couple of the other varieties we're growing, we have haven't really looked at this plant for a couple of days. This is a sweet dumpling, and I've had these. I've bought these in supermarkets, and they are really nice. I mean, the word sweet doesn't do it justice. Some weeds in amongst it. It's a handy thing for doing these sort of videos when you're coming checking your plants. You know, you can do your weeding as you go along. These are no dig beds, so I don't get many weeds, as you can see. I just get the incomers, the ones that sort of fall from the sky. So that will go in my compost heap. One problem I have noticed, as you may notice that with some squashes, is when the main sort of stem splits like that. That isn't a problem. It looks catastrophic. In fact, it looks horrible, like a big open wound. But it's not really. The stems just went woody. And it's still, as you can see, not harming the plant in any way. It's still got healthy growth. This one is just about to put out a leader. It's a little bit behind the rest, so that's its leader stem there. It'll take a few days until it gets to that sort of thing. Over here we have a candy roaster. Now, these are fantastic squashes. If you ever, again, I got this one from Rare Seeds in America, from Baker Creek. If you ever get the chance to grow these squashes, give them a go. They're amazing. They're huge. They look like American footballs or zeppelins, sort of elongated, and they can be like 1.5 feet long and 20 to 30 centimeters. I mean, 20. Well, yeah. I think one of the ones I had last year was about 30 centimeters wide, and it was very squashed in. But the long ones were very zeppelin-like, and 1.5 feet is a conservative estimate of those. And just take you along to show you the gem squash. So in this bed here we've got beans growing. There's 3 different kinds of beans, climbing beans, as you can see. We've got the sort of TP going up, and in the middle I stuck a gem squash. Now this one's doing better. It was struggling at first, but this is a new bed, so this bed was built on cardboard, so it's took a little while for the roots of these, the beans included, to penetrate that into the soil below. This is compost mulch on top. But here's our leader for our gem squash. So it's coming outside of that now. At some point, I'm going to ask it to climb one of these poles. In fact, probably that one's probably going to be easier. And it will climb. It will climb like the beans all the way up, and they prefer to, I think. Any squash that has got these and has a relatively thin vine is probably one that's going to want to climb rather than creep. So most of the other ones, the large squashes, I wouldn't recommend climbing them up anything, because once the squashes get to any decent size, they'll wreck the place. So that's one idea. This is like a 2 sisters sort of method. I mean, if I wanted the 3 sisters, I would have sweet corn here. I do have sweet corn, but it's over the other side. Last year I did it the opposite way around. I used sweet corn as one of the 2 sisters and grew that with squash. And in fact, it was a candy roaster, the last one I just showed you. And that was very successful, and the squash was huge, and it did kind of climb up through the beans, through the corn, sorry. But the corn, I think, was stronger than the beans will be to support it. So if we head back along, I'll show the final bed, which is up here, sort of nestled behind my garlic, which is due to come out in the next couple of weeks. So once that's out, these will kind of get the freedom to roam. So we have another curry here. I don't know if that one's got fruit in it yet. Probably not, but it hasn't set out a leader. As you can see, this one's kind of yellow, and I think it's just because it's so close to the garlic. It's not getting a lot of stuff out of the ground. Again, this is newly mulched. This was mulched with animal manure. It's a blended sort of farmyard manure, and it's recommended for growing things like squashes. Squashes like being put into manure. In fact, the best place to put a squash is in a compost heap. Unfortunately, my compost heaps are still a bit green for that. here we have, this is another candy roaster, and actually, look at this, I didn't even notice that. We've got a tiny little candy roaster coming on that plant. That was fantastic. These were also from Save Seed, incidentally, so these are it'll be interesting if I did the isolation correctly last year, then that should turn out looking like a candy roaster. If I didn't, then we could be looking at some kind of monster, but we'll see. It looks okay for now. It looks like it's got that sort of initial football shape, so we'll keep an eye on it though. We'll probably see it in the next update video how that's shaping up. The garlic will be gone by then. So here we have another blue Hungarian in the middle. The other Maroc, as you can see, this one's got the same problem as the other one, or the same not a problem, should I say, because that doesn't affect it in any way, and it's got its leader now coming out, which is a good thing. So that's that one on the way. I've got another sweet dumpling, which again is growing at the same rate as the other one, so that's fine. That tells me they're both okay. It's two different qualities of soil. This side of the beds are quite clay. Once you get down, you hit a little bit of clay. On the other side, where I showed you the other sweet dumpling, it's very sandy. So, but they seem to be growing at the same sort of rate. But there's the leader stem there. Once that gets cracking, we'll see what kind of fruits we get off of that one. So that was just a quick look at the squashes. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll come back to them in about 2 weeks' time and see if you can see a difference. They should be, I think they've quadrupled in size in the last 2 weeks, so there will be a major difference the next time we come along, and hopefully we'll see some squashes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the Infernal Plot.